You now tuned in to the Gumptown Podcast. I'm your boy Doug B. We ain't got nothing to talk about, but we got something to talk about. Let's go. Good people. Welcome back to the Gumptown Podcast, episode 49. I'm your boy Doug B. If you tuned in to this podcast, thank you for your time and your attention. I really appreciate you giving this podcast a shot. Before we bring on today's guest, we got something to talk about, good people. We back for another edition of Support Local Business Sunday, all right? Huge shout out to Kendrick Farm Market and Cafe located in Prattville, Alabama, about 15-20 minutes outside of the Gump. Well worth the drive. They sell fresh produce, hot meals, things of that nature. I particularly go there for the watermelon. You know I'm a watermelon head. If you follow my IG, Facebook, you know I'm always posting about some good old watermelon. So shout out to Kendrick Farm Market and Cafe located in Prattville, Alabama. Pull up and let them know the Gumptown Podcast sent you. All right, that's all we got to talk about, good people. On with today's show. Today's guest, he is the founder and owner of BJH Hospitality Group Incorporated. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I'm sure you all will be inspired by his story. Let's give a warm Gumptown round of applause for Brandon Hurst. Hurst, how's it going, bro?
What's good, my good brother? What's going on, man? You don't know how excited I am to be here. What an honor it is, man, to be chopping it up with you on Gumptown Podcast, bro. How are you?
I'm doing great, my brother. How about you?
Listen, man, I am out here just trying to make something out of nothing, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I definitely understand that. First things first, man. Really, I appreciate you for taking time out of your schedule to chop it up with me.
Yeah, most def, man. When you definitely reached out, man, I was like, of course, man. We've been through some things, ain't we?
No doubt, no doubt. So, of course, we're here to talk about BJH Hospitality Group Incorporated. But before we go there, let's get to know the man behind the brand. What's your story?
Absolutely, man. So, really, BJH Hospitality Incorporated is the housing unit, if you will, for my umbrella business, which is really owning and operating a Chick-fil-A franchise. I have the pleasure of opening the first and the only location here in Brooklyn, New York. And so what a huge honor that is, located right across from the Barclays Center where the Brooklyn Nets play. Hopefully we have a better season this year. We'll see about that. But listen, man, literally from Atlanta, Georgia, born to a single parent home, my older brother and I, and then recently met my biological dad just about 2 years ago in December of 2020, but unfortunately just lost him due to cancer. But I also gained another side of the family that I did not know existed out there. And so when I tell people about my story and my journey is I think that I've always had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit. So when my mom was pregnant with me, it was actually a high risk birth, or high risk pregnancy. And so when I was born, the doctors actually only gave her short life expectancy and told her that she'll probably only live for the next 5 years. And I was grateful to have her for 12 years of my life. And so, but because of that high risk pregnancy, she had a lot of complications and issues and was placed on permanent disability. And so that kind of made things tight around the house. And so me just having this drive really birthed out her survival skills. And I remember one day she brought home this huge jar of dill pickles, and I don't know what overcame me, but I decided to take those pickles and sell it to my friends in the neighborhood. So my mom comes home, and my mom was always just dedicated no matter what. I mean, talk about someone with true grit and perseverance. I mean, she was the epitome of that. And so she came home one day, Brandon, what happened to my pickles? And I was like, well, Mom, I sold them to my friends in the neighborhood. So we're standing in front of the refrigerator, and she said, well, how much did you sell them for? And I said, 50 cents. Next thing I know, she said, "Wop," smacks me across the face. And she was like, as big as those pickles were, you could at least sold them for $1. And so all I remember that day is running down the street, chasing my friend saying, hey, my mom said you owe me 50 cents more for those pickles. And that actually gave us the idea to become the neighborhood candy lady, or the candy house, if you will. And from there, curiosity just started to grow. I remember I had this hard shell Ninja Turtle lunchbox, and right before I would run out of the front door to get on the bus to go to school, I would grab a handful of candy, stick it in my lunchbox, and I would sell it to my friends at school. And this was in middle school. And so by the time I graduated high school, I had two people working for me, and I was doing over $300 a day in sales. And so, like I tell people, that entrepreneurial drive that I still kind of possess today was really birthed out of this spirit of survival. I remember I got tired of being told no, or we couldn't afford this. I mean, it was hard for my mom trying to raise two boys in a house, as a single mother at that time. And so I just wanted to do all that I could to kind of help out around the house. Unfortunately, I lost my mom at the age of 12, like I said, in the sixth grade, but continued on that trend. I was always very competitive. Every school fundraiser or event that there was, I wanted to be number one. I wanted to be the best that I could be. And I've carried that principle on with me till this day of I want to be the best. I demand a level of excellence first from myself. And then I demand that same type of excellence and perseverance from my team. Today, currently, I have over 140 team members and still looking to continue to grow that. And so a lot of people often ask, well, how did you get started with Chick-fil-A? And so I'll tell people my very first fast food job was actually in Atlanta. And I ended up getting a referral from one of my friends. His mom was actually the general manager at a location, not at Chick-fil-A's, but at a different competitor. And so I started working there. No one walks into quick service, or at least in that industry, with the expectation that you're going to build a career out of that, right? That's the mindset. I always had aspirations of going to law school and go work on Wall Street here in New York. That was the biggest thing. That was my lifelong dream. And so just really found my niche in that. Fast forward, get a full ride to Alabama State, the Alabama State University. And friend of mine kept saying, Brandon, Chick-fil-A is looking for a marketing director role. I think you'll be a good fit for it. You should go and apply. And I'm like, I appreciate it, but no, I'm not trying to build a career out of fast food. I really want to go to law school. And at this time, I'm matriculating through business school. And so I finally gave in to that peer pressure. I was working at another competitor across the street, and I gave in to that peer pressure, went in, applied at Chick-fil-A. After five interviews, I ended up getting the job. And I didn't get the position that I actually applied for, which is the ironic aspect. But the challenging part about it that was so intriguing was, one, the five interviews, but two, I was already walking in with a level of management experience that I thought would automatically position me to be in Chick-fil-A's leadership. And that was the first humbling lesson that I had in terms of that career aspect, because although that individual owner operator decided to hire me, he actually said, hey, you got a really good, impressive resume, but I don't hire external leaders. Like, we believe that leadership is a principle that's earned. And so you'll have to work your way up from there. So I said, it's challenge accepted. I started off as a team member in the kitchen and kind of worked my way up. And I think that's where I got hit by the bug, man. I got bit by the bug, if you will. 2008, had an opportunity to meet Dan Cathy, who was our former president and CEO. Had an opportunity to meet him at a conference in Birmingham, Alabama. And I remember just sitting on front row. This guy is coming through, giving high fives, passing out his cell phone numbers, very different from what I was learning in the classroom. And what he was talking about was really about servant leadership. And just something about how he was leading and how he charged and challenged us to lead differently just resonated with me. And I remember leaving that conference, going back to my own operator. I said, hey, tell me a little bit more about this Chick-fil-A thing. And at this time, I'm matriculating through business school. So the unique aspect about, shout out to all the COBA students out there, but the unique aspect of what I was doing at that particular time was I got direct application. So I give you case in point, Doug, you and I had class together. And so I would be leaving production management class and I would walk into the restaurant and my operator would say, "Hey, Brandon, today you're going to learn about inventory." And I'm like, "Get out of here. I was just learning that in the classroom." And so that really helped me just kind of put textbook information to real world application. And that's so important to anyone's career journey to be able to draw those connections and those dots, connect those dots. And so my story just kept taking every turn for the better, if you will. I remember Chick-fil-A has a really awesome program with their current team members. And so I get a call, "Hey, Brandon, we hear about what you've been doing in this restaurant. We love how you train. We love how you engage with people. Have you ever thought about our training opportunity where you get to go and train at other different restaurants?" And so my big break finally came when I got the call to serve in the Chicago market. Fast forward, I'm now a junior, senior, getting ready to graduate, still got law school on the top of my mind. But this Chicago thing, it was interesting. Here's why it was interesting. It was a new market for the Chick-fil-A brand. There were no Chick-fil-A's, period. And this was actually where I got an opportunity to meet who I call one of my good mentors and good friends today, another brother. And so I'm in college still, and I'm in Chicago, traveling back and forth between Chicago and Alabama, serving at these grand opening opportunities in between breaks, if you will. And so this particular guy, Travell Harvey, sits me down and he's like, "Okay, Brandon, what's next?" And I literally have blinders on, dude. I'm like, I'm getting ready to go to law school. And mind you, I'm already behind law school application process, right? Talking about the king of procrastination. And even had I gone to law school, I still would have had to sit that next semester out because I was already behind. And so, but you couldn't tell me that. I was like, "Nope, I'm going to law school. I'm going to law school." And so I leave that, and he's like, "Man, Brandon, I really wish you would take a look at Chick-fil-A a little bit more." And I said, "Okay." So here's the offer they put on the table. He said, "Whatever you do, I think you're going to be successful, but I really think you should take a deeper look into Chick-fil-A. I tell you what, once you graduate, move to Chicago, come learn under me for a little bit, and then see where that takes you." And so I said, "Okay." So I get back to the yard and I'm walking across campus and I hear this voice, literally walking across the yard passing the Equinox, and turn around, it's Dr. Shirley Jordan. I had taken Dr. Jordan's class since freshman year, and she's like, Brandon, yelling at me across the yard, "How you been?" And I said, "What's going on, Dr. Jordan?" She said, "Listen, you've just been on my mind a lot lately." And she reaches in her purse and she hands me this book called Take the Risk. And Doug, when I tell you, I don't know why in that particular moment that she chose me to stop in the middle of the yard and give me that book, but it was a game changer. And here's what that book talked about. I don't know how she knew this, but I was contemplating a very crucial decision. It was like I was at a fork in the road in that particular part of my life. Alabama State had just offered to pay for my full master's in accounting. "Hey, Brandon, we think you're really good. We would love to keep you here as part of the COPA program. We'll pay for your master's in accounting." Cool. I just got that offer with Chick-fil-A, Travell, to move to Chicago, start a brand new life there. But then there was also this hope, this dream about going to law school and going to work on Wall Street, because that's all I knew. That's all I ever wanted to do. And after she gave me that book and I'm reading it, it says, oftentimes when we're assessing risk, we think about what's the worst that can happen versus what's the best that can happen. Mm-hmm. And so when I tell you, Doug, man, I read that book and I said, you know what? Something about Chick-fil-A is just really calling me to do it. And what I realize now, it really wasn't all that about Chick-fil-A in the sense of it was going to be a bigger platform. It was really God saying, "Hey, no, this is you tapping into your purpose and understanding, like, yes, I may sell chicken and delicious waffle fries and milkshakes, but the impact and the influence that you're going to be able to have on generations to come, that's really what I've designed you to do." And because I've designed you to do that, I'm also going to give you the capable skills to be successful and win in that area. And that's what was happening. And so after that, dude, I decided, okay, cool. 2 weeks after graduation, I literally packed everything I own in that black Dodge Ram truck that I'm pretty sure you still that you remember.
Yes, sir.
Drove 14 hours straight to start a brand new life in Chicago, man. Didn't know anybody. I turned down the opportunity to get a free master's at Alabama State, and it kind of just took off from there. And so spent about 2 years in Chicago, took on a director of operations role for a franchisee that was there in the area, helped him build his team, and still completed my MBA. Just ended up having to pay for it. It wasn't free like old Mother Dear was offering. But was fortunate enough to complete my MBA. And it came a point where, all right, I wanted to leave. I wanted to quit working at Chick-fil-A because, again, it's the restaurant industry. It's very hard. It's a grind. And I remember this particular day, I said, you know what? I'm about to quit. I'm about to quit. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I picked up the phone. I was interviewing for accounting positions because I was serious about, I had revamped my whole life. I was like, okay, I have this accounting degree. I'm graduating in a couple of months with this MBA in finance. Surely there's something else I can build a solid, strong career out of. And I picked up the phone and I called a good friend at the corporate office, Andre Kennebrew, and I said, hey, Andre, I'm getting burnt out in the restaurant. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Are there any corporate opportunities for me in which I could come back to Atlanta? So he said, yeah, come on down. So had an opportunity to fly down to Atlanta and interviewed for an accounting position. By the time I got done, they said, no, we don't see you sitting at a desk crunching numbers. So mind you, keep this is the Chick-fil-A thing. I got told no for a leadership position when I went through 5 interviews. And then here I am, fast forward, have an MBA or getting ready to complete an MBA, and I still get told no for an accounting position. But this is one of the things that I really love about the company is because they recognize talent when they see it, and they want to make sure that they're pairing you up in the right position to help you win. And that's what I really love about Chick-fil-A, because here's what they told me. They said, we think you would get bored sitting at a desk crunching numbers. And we think you have too much field experience. We think you have too much personality. We would actually like you to be a part of our new leadership development program. And we think that's a greater fit for you, better fit. And I said, okay, cool. Well, what does it entail? Well, it entails you traveling, a whole lot of traveling, to the tune of 50 weeks out of the year across the country. And you're going to work with brand new owners and operators and help train and develop new team members. And so I said, okay, sign me up. That gave me an opportunity to travel. My first time actually on an airplane was because of Chick-fil-A. Get out of here when you think about that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And when I also tell people I grew up in Atlanta, my first time having like a Chick-fil-A full experience going into a restaurant was when I was in Alabama. That's crazy. Wow. Because of where I grew up in Atlanta, we never had one on that side of town. Yeah, we never had one on that side of town. We just got one. And one of my good friends, Jamari, he owns that. And it's about 15 minutes from the house I grew up in Atlanta. And so that just goes to show you the growth and the impact that still exists for the brand itself, even domestically. And that's another thing that kind of piqued my interest when I was in business school. Like I'm learning about Chick-fil-A and I'm doing, I know some of my former business classmates, they loved it because every time I always did a case study on Chick-fil-A, I would be bringing sandwiches and things back to the yard when I got off. But I just fell in love with this company because of the values and just the impact and growth that I've seen in myself as a leader. And so fast forward, like I said, I left Chicago, joined the leadership development program, which gave me an opportunity to travel across the country. And I consulted with 14 different operators across the country to help them launch their business. And about halfway into that, I get a call from my boss and she's like, Brandon, you know, Chick-fil-A is going to go to New York one day. I'm literally driving on the highway. I had to pull over because I'm so overwhelmed with excitement and emotions because I'm really like, God, is this you saying I still may get a chance to go to New York, but I just may be selling chicken sandwiches and not
Right.
practicing law. And I remember that's exactly what I did. From that point on, I started making it known to everyone that would sit down and hear my story. I said, I'm going to go to New York one day and I'm going to help pioneer the Chick-fil-A brand in New York one day. And so I just started manifesting into now that's a part of my story. Like every single person that is familiar, understood my early career journey, they would always say, yep, Brandon always wanted to be in New York. Brandon always wanted to be in New York. And I made it my mission. Dude, I was so crazy gung-ho about New York. I remember when I found out that we were going up here, and now I had a little bit seniority in the program, so I only started doing East Coast assignments because originally they had me all over the country. I was West Coast, California, Utah. I was like, I have no desire to live over there in those areas. I'm a Southern boy at first, through and through, but I really love New York, and so, dude, I don't came up here, joined the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. I was out there. I was one of those crazy guys stopping people in the middle of Bryant Park, trying to do customer surveys, trying to figure out consumer behavior, asking them what were their favorite restaurants and what's a good price point that they would be willing to pay. How did they define hospitality? I was doing all of that, all in pursuit of me just trying to prove myself to Chick-fil-A. And at that time, I was in my young 20s. I just wanted to show them that I'm your guy. I have what it takes. And yes, I may be young, but I truly love this brand and I know I about business. And so from there, got an opportunity, started doing interviews. The real estate market just wasn't quite right. And it kind of boiled down to, hey, Brandon, we think you are competitive long-term for New York, but you just need to get a little bit more experience under your belt. And I took that. Why did I take that answer? Is because it was not a no, not ever. It was a, hey, yes, we think that there's a strong possibility. And so what I did, I said, give me a shot. And that's exactly what I did. So that at the age of 26, I ended up opening my first franchise in downtown Baltimore in a harbor and had an opportunity to own and operate that location, which was also that city's first inner city location. And so had an opportunity to own and operate that for almost 5 years before relocating here to open the first and only location in Brooklyn. And so that's kind of been my entrepreneurial journey, dude. That is what BJH Hospitality Group Incorporated is all about. But really, my bigger life mission and purpose, I've always had this core tenet, and it stems from creating an environment of growth, stability, and exposure to new life experiences. And people may ask, well, why do you have that as your core philosophy? Well, I think about my own upbringing and the things that I had and the things that I didn't and the things that I wanted to have, but just necessarily may not have always had the resources and or access to. And so I always vowed to myself, whenever I got a moment to do that, I would be sure to pay it forward, but also bring others along with me. And I say this from the most humble place, man. I am so appreciative for, I've probably throughout my career have employed over to my W-2 tax returns is probably like average 200 to 300 per year. Mm-hmm. So you multiply that by the years that I've been in the game as an owner operator. That's how many employment opportunities that I've been able to give. That's how many lives that I would at least like to think that I've had a impact and influence on. And it's evident when you come into my restaurant. I still have kids that have been with me, and I'm sorry, I can't even call them kids because they're adults. Dude, I have adults that have been with me since high school, and they're now have graduated Howard, have graduated Townsend. Both of them are pursuing their master's degree. I am literally doing life with my team members because I want to help them win at life. To me, is more than just a chicken sandwich, the waffle fries and the milkshakes. It's about helping my team win at life. Because I had a village. I had people that saw the same things in me and they realized, hey, this kid can go very far if someone just opened up the doors for him a little bit more. And that's my purpose. That's why I want to go and venture off to where no one wants to go. Dude, we didn't have a lot of people that wanted to come into Brooklyn. We didn't have a lot of interest of people that wanted to go into inner cities for whatever reasons. Oh, the costs are too high, or we don't know that environment. We don't know if the people are going to respond very well. And I said, I'll go. I'll take the challenge. And when I tell you it has paid dividends and has been a game changer for my life and my trajectory and for my children and my children's children, when I get to that point, dude, it's been an unbelievable journey.
Man, you have an unbelievable story, and just hearing you run down everything. And I knew some things, and then some things are brand new to me. And just kind of been over here taking notes, man. And your story is powerful. Just how you got started. You've been an entrepreneur since you were a kid. You've always had that drive to serve your people, serve the community, help the people out. You had this grand idea of being a lawyer in New York, Wall Street. I remember you talking about that back in college, and it's amazing. Like you hit on it. You were talking about it was just like God put you in New York, but not doing what you thought you would be doing. So hats off to you for taking on that challenge of going into Brooklyn, going into these inner cities that people didn't want to go in because, hey, you were willing to take that risk. You was willing to go out there and make it happen. And it's so funny, man. Like a lot of times, most of the times, our plans don't go according to our plans. A lot of times, God be like, "Oh, you want to do this? Nah, let me send you over here." And at time,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure it was point in time you was like, man, why me? Like, why am I going through this? Why can't I get what I want? You never know what God was protecting you from, bro. Like, and
Oh,
I ain't trying to get all
yeah.
spiritual on you, but you just never know what you're being protected from.
Whew.
So you kind
Yeah.
of, so man, just hearing your story, knowing a good bit of your story, man, it's so powerful. And all you've ever done is overcome. And like you said, it came out of survival, but you was tired of being told no. That's really what I got from your story. And even when Chick-fil-A told you no multiple times, you're like, all right, I'll do whatever it takes to get there. And eventually they stopped saying no. They said, okay, well, you got to get more experience, which you said, hey, they gave you a slither of hope. Like they're not saying no this time. They're saying just not right now. So hats off to you, man, for always being able to pivot and just be a leader in every aspect of every sense of the word, man. And I want to go back.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. No problem. I want to go back to the Alabama State University. Tell me about your
Yeah.
HBC. Tell me about your HBCU experience. How was that for you?
Man, that's did I tell people, did I ever share the story with you of how I got to Alabama State?
No, sir.
Uh
Let's hear it.
so listen, so I applied to several different colleges coming out of high school. I was going through a whole lot at that time of my life. And I knew that I wanted to go to school because education and academics, I've always found as my escape, my release. I thrived in that zone very well. And considering all of the challenges and circumstances that I was going through in high school, I was just like, I'll go to any college just as long as it ain't in Georgia, right? I ain't care anything about the Hope Scholarship. I ain't care anything about the Pell Grant. I could, there were opportunities to go to school in Georgia, but I just wanted to get out and explore because I know that there's so much bigger of a world beyond what we just experience in our immediate environment. And so applied to several different colleges, forgot I even applied to Alabama State, to be honest. And the day before graduation, like literally high school graduation, I get a call or I get a letter. My grandmother calls me and she said, baby, you got a letter from Alabama State University. I said, okay. I'm at graduation practice, big stadium. And I said, okay, Granny, go ahead and read it to me. And she said, well, baby, they want to give you a full ride. I said, oh, they want me to come for the free? And I said, I'm going. Now, mind you, I didn't really know anything about Alabama State. There was this young lady that I was chasing, had a huge crush on. She was older, so she was already at Alabama State, and I knew that they had a really good band program, but I too was trying to put band behind me because I had been in band since middle school. So I actually wasn't even looking to get in a band when I got to Alabama State. But leadership calls and I ended up having two friends, John Mills, rest his soul, and Darius. I mean, we were kind of thick as thieves, and us three out of Riverdale High School said, all right, we're going down to Alabama State. They applied the pressure and was like, dude, you got to get in the band. So for me, because I had a full ride, I was like, oh, I can apply for a band scholarship, which was at the time they were offering $10,000 scholarships. And I was like, okay, that means I'll get a refund and I can keep that $10,000. But I get down to the gump. First of all, my first time coming to Montgomery was my first day of pre-drill. And so I'm driving across the state line and I'm watching the temperature literally as the city begins to fade behind me. And I'm like, what did I just get myself into in this country? You know, passing, that's a drive, you know, going through Auburn, Tuskegee, and it's like the open wilderness out there. And coming from the city, I was like, nah, what did I just get myself into? But I made it work. Get down there, pre-drill, and made it through pre-drill. And if anybody knows anything about HBCU bands, y'all know going through pre-drill and the band program period is just real legit. I mean, it's the real deal. And I make it through pre-drill, from waking up 4 a.m. in the morning to not getting back to your dorm room to 12 a.m. the next morning. And first day of school, band director calls me into his office and said, Brandon, they talking about you got a balance at Old Financial Aid. Doug, let me tell you how much my balance was. $5. They were talking about, dude, they were talking about dropping me out of courses because of a $5 balance. So, you know, I walked across, left Tula Valley Hall, went across the yard, talked to financial aid, and I said, I was raising all kind of hell. I said, I got a full ride and I got a band scholarship. Da, 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 da. That lady looked me in my face and said, baby, you ain't got no band scholarship on here. I said, what? So I go right back across the yard. I'm talking to Dr. Oliver, and they said, yeah, man, we had to pull your band scholarship because you can't get both. We found out that you got a full ride, so the school won't allow us to give you additional money because all your expenses are already taken care of. I said, are you kidding me? And I just bust my behind for these last couple of weeks, my blood, sweat, and tears in this thing for real.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't know, I actually ended up quitting the program. And when I tell you that was the worst decision, because the first couple of games I missed and I'm sitting in the stands looking like a loner, and because all my friends were on the field performing. And I realized, like, that's where I belong. I belonged on the field. And so even after quitting the band, coming back for a couple of weeks, I had to humble myself, repair that relationship, still came back in a leadership position because of just how disciplined I was and how I carried myself amongst my peers, so much so that I became a drum major my sophomore year. And then co-head drum major my junior year, and just continued to do that, ended up exiting the program, participated in several other extracurricular activities, student-led organizations. And I can't forget the creme de la creme, really, when you think about, you know, joining Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I mean, just immense experience. And coming from Atlanta, I grew up knowing about the AUC. We talk about Spelman, we talk about Morehouse, we talk about Clark, but to see and to be a part of the culture that you created, we created, I mean, that will forever be embedded in me and my journey. Like every year, either homecoming, Turkey Day Classic, or Magic City Classic, those are always priorities on my calendar. I may not be able to get to all three of those games, but coming back is like an experience. And anytime that I come back, I'm always trying to get other people to join me in on that. Last year, I had an opportunity to bring my nephews and my family down so that they could experience it. So I'm always looking, because that was a part of shaping me. when I think about my leadership skills, there's a reason why I was able to walk into Chick-fil-A and they see something in me, because that leadership acumen that was being built on Old Glory. That's if for those that don't know what Old Glory is, that's what we call the marching field, our practice field for the Mighty Marching Hornets. And so I'm just thinking about those habits that were formed. We used to sing this song early in the morning before we get down. I got to eat my breakfast. And so when I think about that, that discipline was already formed, and that carries over with me till this day. So my HBCU experience was phenomenal, dude.
Yes, sir, man. And what a journey, man. I never knew that you you left the program. And once again, like you said, man, you had to humble yourself and come back and realize, hey, I belong out there. And it's just another testament to your character, man. Just always going through stuff and figuring a way out, man. And you try to get away from band, but ended up being in the band, being in the best band in the land, and getting a leadership
Yeah.
position. And HBCU experience, that's great, man. And I love to touch on that because I'm glad I ended up at the HBCU. Of course, coming up, I know you in Atlanta. I know in Alabama, man. You know it's Auburn, Alabama. So the PWI experience was what was promoted the most, but ended up at HBCU. Man, it was wonderful experience. So glad you were able to break that down, and I appreciate you for breaking it down as thoroughly as you did. So let's fast forward over into your Chick-fil-A career, which you've already done a great job of going through that journey and talking about your obstacles you overcome. I want to get down to the nitty gritty in terms of cultural differences between Baltimore and Brooklyn. I know they're both East Coast cities, but I'm pretty sure they have their own flavor. What's the cultural differences you can speak on, or you can think of in terms of those two cities?
Yeah. So what I experienced with Baltimore, I think is one of those cities when you think about just the industry, is very transient, but Baltimoreans have so much love. True Baltimoreans have so much love for their city. And I think that's what I was able to experience there in Baltimore. That was really, Baltimore was like my first East Coast lived in once I left Chicago and really had an opportunity to kind of get settled in. So had some learning curves there for myself. But then I get here to Brooklyn, and New York itself is a melting pot. But when you think about Brooklyn, I'm thinking Jay-Z and Biggie, and I see that flair, right? I live in Bed-Stuy, so to be able to put on Jay-Z, listen to where he grew up, and see the transition and where it is today, and then try to go back and visualize what he put into his lyrics and the energy, the vibe. Brooklyn is just a different experience. It's not even like Manhattan. I can't even compare those. So, I mean, we compare Manhattan as a city, and that's another thing that I also realized when people are thinking about New York, they think about Manhattan, and they don't realize New York City is actually made up of 5 boroughs, and Manhattan is just one of those 5 boroughs. And then you got Brooklyn, you got Staten Island, you got Queens. And so just going from there, you just keep going. And I can't forget about the Bronx. So when you put those 5, it's every borough you're going to go to, you're going to get a different experience. Every neighborhood you go to, you're going to get a different experience. And that's what I truly love about my experience here thus far in New York, from a business perspective and a personal perspective, because as much as people think I'm a teacher of the game, I'm also a student of the game, and I'll never stop being a student of the game. You always want to, I've once heard, hey, if you want to master something, you teach it. And so, yes, I want to teach, but I also want to remain a student of something as well. And so New York just gives me that culturally and professionally.
Much respect. Great breakdown, man. Great breakdown. So, in terms of, and I have a typical set of questions that I typically go through, but because you've already answered them, I'm not going to do that. I'm going a little off the grid, but still in line with what you do. So, in terms of you being a leader, being in leadership roles all your career. Let's talk. Let's talk leadership. So, what would you say your leadership style is? If I went to let me better question. If I went to one of your employees and I asked him, "What's up, Brandon Hurst leadership style? Is he a micromanager or does he allow room for creativity? What would they say your management style is?"
They would actually say that I am very caring, and they know that I would give them the shirt off my back, but I would bet every dollar that I have in the bank right now that consistently what you're going to hear is he demands excellence. And so however you want to interpret that, definitely not micromanagement. I'm going to give you room to learn from your mistakes, but repeated mistakes and mistakes of the same caliber are no longer mistakes. And so I am a teacher, I am a creator, but you also got to come with facts and data. And I think my team loves that, right? It's kind of a love-hate type style, because you know what? When I used to do interviews, because I don't do team member interviews anymore, but one of the questions that has been a pillar, and I'm giving my secret ingredients here, Doug, but I always tell people, I said, have you ever played sports? Most people say yes. And if they can't relate to that, they say no. And so I ask them to pick something else. And I say, have you ever had that one person in your life that pushed you, right? And you just felt like, man, why is this person always riding me? Why is this person, like they made you want to pull your hair out, frustrated. But at the end of the day, you knew that they wanted you to be the best, right? It could be a drill sergeant, coach, parent, whatever. Most people say, yeah. And I said, okay. And you knew that they wanted you to be your best, right? And they said, yeah, man, I've done so much because of that. I said, well, take that person, multiply them times 10,000, and that's my leadership style.
I love it, man. Demand excellence, and that doesn't sound like a micromanager at all. Like that's just, hey, like you said, you make a mistake once, okay, let's learn from it. If you keep making the same mistake over and over, clearly it's become a habit, and hey, we got to take other measures. And I understand that. Like those are the. So it sounds like if the roles were reversed, the type of leader you are, you would love to work for that type of person.
Absolutely. Because I had another mentor that once told me, he said, Brandon, you don't need a team of cheerleaders. You don't need a full team of cheerleaders. You need to make sure that you surround yourself with people, or some people that are saying, hey, that's good, but your good ain't good enough. And he said, here's why. Because to the average person, that may sound harsh, right? First hearing it, like, dang, my good ain't good enough. And it's not to tear you down, but it's to make sure that you don't fall into a spirit of complacency. And I need that. I ask my team, I ask other people around me, hey, what's my perception, right? Help me identify what my blind spots are. Because I can walk around all day thinking like, oh yeah, I got it together. I got this and can't nobody tell me nothing. And that's not the reality. That's not the reality. So I think you'll hear, and the only reason why I'm able to like passionately speak that to you, because this is what they tell me. When people leave my organization and they call and they're still checking in, that lets you know about my leadership style too. Like, tell me the last time you left a job and you still calling your old boss.
Never.
my point exactly.
Right.
I remember I got a particular team member that's still in Baltimore. I still got team members from Baltimore that are calling saying, when the next time you coming down here, we got to go to lunch. I need some life experience. I love hearing that because, again, it goes back to what I talked about earlier and just trying to help them win at life. I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you in the areas that you need to be pushed and that other people may not necessarily feel comfortable pushing you in, but it's because I see sometimes the potential that you may not have realized.
I love to hear it. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, someone once did that for me, man.
No, I love it, man. Just paying it forward. And I was curious about that question. I already knew the answer just based on the fact that people have been associated with you since they've been in high school. So that tells me like your management style is definitely is encouraging, and like you said, you demand excellence, and that's what we need. Like we don't need somebody. We need that push because left to our own devices, we won't give our best. We'll give just enough, just so we won't get fired. So the fact that you say, hey, your good ain't good enough, not harsh to me. It sounds great because, like you said, complacency, man, yeah, it'll do way more damage than good. So much respect to your leadership style.
I appreciate that, and in all transparency, man. Sometimes I do struggle. Like nobody's perfect, and I think my team appreciates that too. My team has seen me cry. My team has seen me frustrated. My team has seen a great deal of vulnerability because that's important for them to see. Like I'm in this thing with y'all, and this ain't something I'm just telling you to do. No, I'm in the trenches with you, right? And for me, I think that buy-in goes a long way with my team. And that's another reason why I make it a priority to the same story that I had an opportunity to share with you, Doug. Everybody in my organization has had the opportunity to hear through our new hire orientation. People say, well, why do you tell them so much about your story? And because oftentimes, especially with people's success, one, if you don't tell them the origin story, that leaves room for them to interpret whatever, right? Oh, he was born with this. He had a silver spoon and all. No. But most importantly, it helps me demystify the thoughts in their minds that they couldn't or they can't do the same thing coming from similar environments and situations.
I get it, man. I understand. Like pretty much like you said, like you telling your story, it definitely makes you more human, and it doesn't make you look like a superhero. Like, hey, I didn't come with no silver spoon or a wood spoon or any type of spoon. I got it out the mud. So no, trust me, man. I would trust me. Like if I'm like that, hearing a leader tell that story on my first day or first week on the job, I'd be like, wow. So he just let me know what's possible for me if I go through the necessary steps to get there. Because like you said, like I can only imagine people see you now and they think you've always been that version of you. Until you tell them your story, you're like, nah, not so fast, my friend. Like just going through what you've been through, and life is you hear like the power of somebody's story is it's always humbling because you get out of a lot of times, man, you have these preconceived notions about people, and you're like, man, his story is impactful. So now I love it, man. Everything with your leadership style and just how you got things rocking and rolling up there. So in terms of what would you say your short-term and long-term goals are for yourself? And let's go there. Like, let's get into that vision portion. What you got?
Cool. Well, right now, I want to continue to strengthen the relationships with family. I just came from a very great fun-filled reunion weekend last weekend in Atlanta. So personally, I want to continue to do that and just get back to discovering. Well, not really discovering, but exploring other things beyond just the professional aspect. Get back into more bike riding and traveling and exploring. Those are things that I want to do from a personal perspective. From a business side, man, it's so many things that I got spinning. I was just blessed and fortunate to purchase my first multi-unit home that part of the units will be used for employee housing to provide affordable housing. So real estate is definitely one of the things that I want to get into or continue to explore and expand. Law school is still somewhere in the picture. Just trying to figure out when I'm gonna do that. But most immediately is to continue to grow my Chick-fil-A portfolio. That way I could give additional opportunities to some of my current team. Like I said earlier, I think right now we sit at a roster of 150. I could very easily see me having an organization of 300 plus people in the next 2-3 years. So I want to continue to do that while all at the same time, family, growing family in that aspect. Maybe some venture capitalist type things, understanding that a little bit more from an investment. The good Lord puts a book somewhere in there. I will be sure to make sure that I sit down and listen for that. And yeah, man, you got to stay tuned. Like, good things are coming out by the end of this year with my own personal website. We'll be announcing some things on there. So got some things working in the pipeline.
Yes, sir. I already know, man. I know you got some grand over there cooking, and hey, we ain't got to talk about it now. We'll just see it. We'll all see it, and we'll all be amazed. Like, dang it, Hurst did it again. He doing the upper echelon. The only way Hurst know how to do it. I fools with it, and congrats on acquiring that property, man. Real estate, man. That's dope. Congrats, brother.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. And shout out to you, man. Dude, you have been consistently in the paint, man, with just your podcast. And it's no secret, man. You and I are LBs. Shout out to Spring 08. You already know. TP2 in this thing. And that's one of the things, that's when we talk about priorities, our line trips and things. I love that, man. Even if it's for once a year, it feels like we're able to come back together like we haven't even missed a beat. And I love that, man. So shout out to you and your wife and what y'all got going on, man. I'm just extremely proud and happy for y'all too.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. So you pretty much already answered the $1 million question I asked, man. Whenever I have entrepreneurs on the platform, I started this podcast because I wanted to highlight the greatness coming out of Montgomery. Whether you're from here or whether you lived here for a significant period of your life, you was here for your time at the Alabama State University. And I was going to ask you, what do you appreciate the most about the city of Montgomery? And you kind of already covered that just in terms of the discipline it taught you. Anything else you want to add to? What you appreciate the most about your time here in Montgomery?
Oh, I still love it. I still love coming down to the Gump, man. It's like family. Like that's one thing I can say. You got to work really, really hard to establish that kind of community here in New York, right? And it's not because people don't want to do it. It's just different circumstances, different lifestyle, the hustle and bustle, and the enormous amount of people. But what I can appreciate about the Gump, Montgomery, it's where I started my career journey, right off over there off Colonial Promenade, the Eastern Bypass, right? So every year I'm coming back and I'm stopping at that first Chick-fil-A store there. Just the love that you get is that consistently refills my cup every time that I get a chance to come back down to the South and especially to Montgomery, man. So shout out to all of you great Gumptown people that make it wonderful, man. It helps me reminisce about the good old days at the Rose and, the hole in the wall and all of those good things, man. Very great memories for sure. And I'm just appreciative of it.
Yes, sir. Powerful, powerful. So how can the people connect with you, Hurst? What are your social media handles?
Absolutely, man. So you guys could definitely follow me. I'm still live and well on Facebook. You can follow me, Brandon Hurst, definitely LinkedIn, Chick-fil-A Flatbush and Atlantic on Instagram, if that's what you guys are on these days. So definitely continue to look for me on those things, and then be on the lookout for the personal website that will be launching by the end of this year.
Yes, sir. And of course, I'll put all of the social media info in the description of the episode. Hey, Hurst, thanks again for this conversation, bro. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely, my brother. Stay up. I appreciate you. So humble for the opportunity again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good people, that concludes another dope episode of the Gumptown Podcast. We gone, but before we leave, remember, be blessed, be safe, but most importantly, have the audacity to be you. Gone. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate your time and your attention. Until next time.